quite interesting that this is being hosted or broadcast out of Manchester and the north of England, because we're moving into something called Industry 4.0 with digital transformation and AI. But of course, the north, and in particular the area close to Manchester, is where the first industrial revolution started, as noted by Wikipedia, the spinning jenny in Lancashire in the 1700s, late 1700s. And then, of course, the first storable, programmable computer, small-scale experimental machine, SSCM, at Manchester University in 1948. And now we're moving into something called Industry 4.0. So here in this slide, we can see the transition across the different industrial revolutions. And at this period, today, we're moving into what's termed the fourth industrial revolution, where you've got autonomous decision-making, cyber-physical systems, machine learning, data-driven decision-making, the Internet of Things. If we take a step back and say, what is digital transformation? Well, Salesforce provide a definition, which is that digital transformation is the process of using digital technologies to create new or modify existing business procedures, culture, and customer experiences to changing business and market requirements. It's essentially reimagining the business in the digital age. And the impact of the COVID crisis, the tragedy that we have, is that it's in actual fact accelerating digital transformation, as noted by PwC and McKinsey. That digital strategies and digital transformation is moving faster because those who are highly reliant on the physical world are actually suffering disproportionately. Now we're going to focus on the role of AI and machine learning in digital transformation, the way it's going to transform the entire economy. And this infographic here just shows how the technology is going to move across every sector of the economy, be it retail, cybersecurity, industry, with manufacturing, healthcare, where there's huge potential, and we've noted with COVID-19 the need for many times you have to see your GP, your physician remotely, etc. The financial services with Fintech, and indeed, as noted, the retail sector and marketing. And again, just taking it back for a second to look at basically what is the definition of AI and what is machine learning and deep learning before we move into how they're actually going to transform the industries. Well, AI is defined as computing systems which are capable of performing tasks that humans are very good at. For example, recognizing objects. Machine learning, in turn, is a subset of AI. It's the field of AI that applies statistical methods to enable computer systems to learn from the data towards an end goal. And it was introduced by Arthur Samuel in 1959. Deep learning, in turn, is a subset of machine learning. It basically entails neural networks, and where they have several hidden layers, the neural network is referred to as the deep neural network. And a lot of the excitement in AI over the last 7 or 8 years has been coming from deep learning. And we'll look at examples in a moment. The type of AI that we have today is called narrow AI. It's good at doing a specific individual task rather than multitasking. The type of AI that you see in the Hollywood movies, such as Terminator with Skynet or iRobot, tends to be artificial general intelligence. And whilst you see media stories scaring you about it, we're not really believed to be anywhere close to getting there right now. And superintelligence from Nick Bostrom is basically where it surpasses human intelligence and they replicate each other or create their own versions and go beyond human intelligence. But that's something for the distant future, if at all. And I think this infographic here from NVIDIA on NVIDIA blogs, made by Michael Copeland, kind of gives a nice timeline of how things have developed. We had this overall umbrella of AI that kicked off in the 1950s or circa the 1950s. And then the era of machine learning really took off in the 80s and 90s. And then in 2010 onwards, deep learning had a number of breakthroughs that really resulted in big advances in computer vision with convolutional neural networks. And with more recently, we're seeing transformers such as GPT-3 and then BERT, the model from Google, and natural language processing having huge impacts. And there's been a role by hardware, graphical processing units, the gaming cards, that NVIDIA and others manufacturers have had a huge role in enabling deep learning to spread. The larger data sets, which have been important in terms of the internet and social media, mobile have really helped generate those. And now we're moving from a world where AI is going to come out of being on the cloud, which is where it is today, on a remote cloud server, into the edge on devices around us. It's important to note that it's a market still in its relative infancy in terms of size. And I think this infographic, which came from KPMG in 2018, just puts things into a realistic perspective. The intelligent automation market, which includes AI and robotic process automation. But you can see this trajectory from 2022 to 2025 is set for very rapid growth compared to where we are right now. Maybe COVID-19 will even accelerate that. And of course, it even impacts the old world. We often think about AI and digital transformation, etc., being some kind of futuristic Star Wars movie or Star Trek, etc. But in actual fact, Harley-Davidson, a very old world company, used AI a number of years ago to increase their marketing leads, their sales leads rather, by nearly 3,000%, 2,930% in 3 periods. They found customer segments that they'd previously been missing. So it shows you how you can apply it even to a traditional business. We're seeing growth in areas like visual search with combining things like natural language processing to lead to high degrees of personalization, rather, I should say. And a good example is Alibaba in China, who in November 2019 generated a record $38.4 billion of sales by combining computer vision with natural language processing to make hyper-personalized recommendations on apparel and clothing. So it shows you the impact for retail and marketing and really getting to understand the customer and give them recommendations that they really, get them over the line, if you like, rather than spamming them with things that they don't care about. This shows this is actually a deep neural network that I built, and it shows explainable AI in computer vision. And it shows patient 1 and patient 2, or I built this with my team. And essentially, we can see that the average dermatologist, who's a highly trained medic, gets to close to 87% or 86.6% of accuracy in correctly identifying cancer. We got to 90% with 7 classes, and that were imbalanced in actual fact, so we had to do some various techniques. And you can see in patient number 1, it's very clear to the human eye. And then you can see on the right side what the neural network's looking at with explainable AI and a saliency map. And then in patient number 2, you can see it's very hard for the human eye to pick that up. But you can see on the right-hand side that the deep neural network actually correctly identifies it and indeed alerts the medical staff or the healthcare professional what they're actually looking at to make their determination so that the healthcare professionals can have more confidence. This infographic just gives you a high-level overview of how finance and insurance, or fintech and insurtech, are going to be touched in every single sector by AI. And I use AI as the umbrella term that encompasses machine learning and deep learning from the earlier slide. And whether it's payments, and we're seeing payment by face take off in China, for example, fraud detection tools that are widely used by many of the financial companies, regulatory technology, for example, again, onboarding customers during the pandemic in various places. The likes of Revolut and others, some companies in Eastern Europe and China use get you to send a picture, and they'll scan that picture and recognize you from say, a document, a driving license or a passport. Then we also have the growth in insurtech with automated underwriting, automated claims processing, and loan credit approvals. So we're going to going forwards into an era called the invisible bank, where we're going to combine AI with augmented reality, or I should say probably mixed reality, where we're going to be able to have touchless or frictionless banking and personalized interactions. So I'll just skip over this because this kind of reemphasizes the kind of things we looked at. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the way that AI and 5G are going to combine together on edge computing across the Internet of Things. And you may wonder, what is the big deal of 5G? Why is it different from 3G and 4G? Well, the fact is that latency is going to go down dramatically. The expectations are between 1 millisecond to 4 milliseconds of latency, whereas with 4G networks, you could be anywhere between 80 to 100 milliseconds of latency. And as you go into a remote cloud server backwards and forwards, that can really impact real-time capabilities. So it's faster, it has much lower latency, and crucially, it has massive increase in device capacity. In fact, many times you'll see a 4G network drop to 3G because it's often many 4G networks are maxed out on capacity. And we're going to actually have a massive increase in devices coming forwards. So what is edge computing? Well, you can see here, edge computing at the bottom, whereas cloud computing at the top. And we're talking about billions of devices, as it notes in this triangle, from the University of Paderborn. Billions of devices all around us, sensors, mobiles, smart cameras, etc. But you're going to have AI increasingly on the device going forwards. And why is that? Because then you're closer to where the data is getting generated. And that allows for real-time interactions or near real-time, where you can do, for example, remote robotic surgery. In China, using 5G network, a surgeon completed successfully remote brain surgery on a patient whilst he was 3,000 kilometers away. It's going to be essential for autonomous systems. It's going to enable you to interact with customers on the fly as they walk around the shopping mall, for instance. So there's going to be real-time capabilities on the edge, on the device itself. I'm not going to say too much about this, but just in case anyone gets a bit upset with the mention of 5G, there's been a lot of fake information out there. And you can see this from the UK government and Imperial College, which shows it's non-ionizing. So and in actual fact, things like when you sit in the sunshine, hard to think about that on a grey autumn day, but ultraviolet rays, etc., are much more dangerous for us. And this from Ofcom shows again the advantages of 5G is going to deliver and the way it's going to work with emerging technologies that are essential for digital transformation, virtual reality, and in particular augmented reality, and the way it's going to affect everything from transport, environmental monitoring, smart grid networks, agriculture, retail, and the near-time instant responses. So again, we've seen the various types of things that are going to be available. This slide actually from statistics shows how we're going to get to nearly 75, or I should say over 75 billion devices connected by 2025, according to their forecast. That's an average of 9 per person on the planet, more or less, approximately. Think about that. That's a huge amount of data that's going to get generated. And in actual fact, machine learning and deep learning is going to be essential to make sense of that data, to allow us to make meaningful interactions. And this from IDC, this chart here shows, again, this dramatic growth in data that we're going to get. Now, right now, we're already in the era of big data, sorry about that, the era of big data, where IBM have pointed out that over the last 2 years, 90% of data in human history was created. But in actual fact, that's only going to accelerate going forwards, as you can see the slope of this curve. Intel Ovum point out that in the media sector, for example, $1.3 trillion of revenue will come from 5G by 2028. And you can really see the takeoff point, whilst they point 2025 is when it goes over 50%. But you can see this dramatic acceleration from 2022 to 2025. And that's as 5G networks scale around the world. And we're going to get to huge complete transformations, as we already see with COVID-19 today, and the tragedy that we have and the challenges economically, etc., and human health, that many of us are working from home remotely. But customer experiences are going to be transformed as we get AI combined with 5G and mixed reality out there. This is actually an image from Microsoft HoloLens, and it shows a hologram. This person here is a hologram of the other person there, and they're speaking fluent Japanese that's already been translated with neural translation, whereas the actual person doesn't speak Japanese. So it shows that language as a barrier can go, and in actual fact, we might be doing this session 3 years from now holographically with our smart glasses on. And you may think I'm joking, but Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, etc., are all expected to launch smart augmented reality glasses over the next 1 to 2 years that will be 5G enabled and enable these kind of interactions and experiences going forwards. So we're probably going to move away from mobile, in my opinion, and this is probably going to define the rest of the decade when it does actually occur over the next couple of years. So the kind of product experiences that we can get, again, hyper-personalization. This could have been Messi, but of course, as it's Ronaldo because we're broadcasting at Manchester, but maybe next year it'll be Messi, who knows? But in any event, the person can see Ronaldo holographically, they can actually tap and swipe and buy his t-shirt, and that's the kind of interactions you're going to go to, rather than a static 2D image that you see in Instagram today, often. Music as well. Justin Bieber, it could be Taylor Swift, it could be anyone, interacting with them on a personalized basis. This shows how BMW technicians are already using augmented reality smart glasses today to monitor and check equipment for faults. So it's not really sci-fi, it is actually happening. Retail, I mean, Manchester in the north is big for retail, and I believe retail sector is getting, well, physical retail, as we know, is getting crushed in COVID-19 crisis. It was already getting crushed before then due to the onslaught of mobile and online internet. However, it's only going to accelerate going forwards. And the question for retailers is, how are they going to survive? What are they going to do if they have a presence in the high street or the mall? Because increasingly customers like the experience, but they often buy online. Well, why not turn it into an experience store? And I think rather than smart mirrors, I would actually go more for the augmented reality and virtual reality lounge, where you come in, you have a personalized experience. They take the size measurement for you. They help you order internally. It comes home to your home or to the store whilst you wait, and you enjoy the refreshments, etc., and gaming, etc., and entertainment. And then the retailer gets to know more about you as well, and it's a win-win relationship. Healthcare is going to be massively transformed alongside retail, and we're seeing AI today already transforming healthcare through drug discovery. AI has been used in trying to help find a vaccine. MIT for COVID-19, MIT showed research that they had a breakthrough on the development for a vaccine that is going to be more effective across larger segments of the population. Hopefully that will come to production, let's see. But in any event, it shows you the kind of things we can do to accelerate drug discovery using deep learning techniques and to reduce the costs as well. As it takes 7 to 15 years on average to get a drug to market in the current methods. So it's going to have an important role there, including in clinical trialing when we get to smart wearables and 5G, etc., to do real-time monitoring of patients and try and get through that process quicker. We've seen the example of medical imaging earlier, electronic health records, again, making sense using NLP techniques and deep learning to understand what's in the records and etc., and personalized care for the patient. Robotic surgery, as mentioned, using AI combined with 5G networks. So we can see from this chart that it's set for dramatic growth going forwards by 2025. So again, this just gives you an illustration of the kind of world we'll be in going forwards. The kind of interfaces we're also going to have. Federated learning and decentralized learning. I didn't intend to make this a technical session. I gave a session last year where I went into code with deep learning. And this time, I think we said we'd go more of a commercial one. But I think this is going to have an important role in helping scale machine learning in areas, and deep learning for that matter, in areas such as healthcare, banking, insurance, where data privacy is key. And you can learn through the devices, but aggregate the model, aggregated learning, collaborative learning, back on a centralized platform. I won't go into too much detail about it, but NVIDIA and King's College London showed how it could be deployed in healthcare a year ago. And because, of course, with healthcare, there are a lot of data privacy challenges to scale machine learning. But federated learning can be a key way to get around that. And we can see that counterpoint research showed that mobile phones are going to have many more AI chips or GPUs in them, going from 190 million in the current level in 2019-2020 to 1.25 billion by 2022. And that's an example of AI scaling across the edge. So anyway, I'm just going to quickly show the short seconds I have, the kind of examples of how IoT and AI are going to scale across the Internet of Things for on-device machine learning in factories with Boston Consulting Group, the Ghost and the Machine, showing again how our industry is going to be more and more automated with machine learning to do predictive analytics and run things efficiently. Agriculture is also going to get transformed, pretty much everything. The key lessons that you have to take away are that, this is coming. The fourth industrial revolution is on its way. There's no point waiting. You have to start trying to identify how you can explore, how you can use these techniques in a sensible way. The talk before by the doctor gave a very good overview of the challenges that are there. And in actual fact, Gartner points out that 87% of machine learning projects fail. So you have to adapt, if you're new to it, go in sensibly, start with a relatively easy project, have a very clearly defined target, and make sure that your team have data and that they're properly backed. I think we're going to a new era of Industry 4.0. BMW, we'll talk about that later in the session later today, the kind of things they're doing. So, every sector, as you can see, and data is key, as this points out. So I think that's the key takeaway that I give, really. So the fundamentals of machine learning projects. So I think I'll stop there.